All right, today we are diving into one of the most epic stories on Earth, the story of the plant kingdom. We're talking about a journey that spans hundreds of millions of years, a saga of incredible innovation that took life from, well, simple pond scum all the way to the massive, complex trees that literally shape the world we live in.
So how did they do it? I mean, really, how did life go from just floating around as pond scum to becoming these towering redwoods? Well, it wasn't some single magical event. It was actually a series of brilliant, game-changing inventions. Each one solved a huge, critical problem, and that allowed plants to leave the comfort of the water and, step by incredible step, conquer the land.
Okay, but before we really get into that history, there's something we gotta get straight. Our whole idea of what a plant even is has totally changed over time. It's not as simple as it's green and has leaves. We used to group them based on just what they look like, but now it's all about their deep, complex family trees, their evolutionary relationships.
Yeah, our own understanding has been on its own little journey. At first, we used these really simple artificial systems, basically grouping plants just by stuff like their color. Then we got a little smarter and moved to natural systems that looked at their overall structure. But today, the gold standard is the phylogenetic system. Just think of it like we're building a super detailed family tree for every single plant, tracing its lineage all the way back to its ancient ancestors. And that family tree, that's the story we're going to follow.
All right, so let's rewind all the way to the beginning. Back to life in the water. We have to start with the group that really laid the foundation for, well, everything that came after. Algae. These guys are the OGs, the true pioneers. We always hear about rainforests being the lungs of the planet, right? But the real unsung hero, the true workhorse, is algae. I mean, get this. These incredibly simple organisms are responsible for at least half of all the photosynthesis happening on Earth. So yeah, every other breath you take, you can thank algae for that. They are an absolute planetary powerhouse, just doing their thing.
And look, algae isn't just one thing. It's a hugely diverse group. I mean, the three main classes here are so different from each other, they use totally unique pigments to soak up sunlight, which, you guessed it, is why we have green, brown, and even red algae. They even store their energy differently. It's kind of like they all have different kinds of batteries powering them.
And don't think of them as just some slimy stuff in the ocean. No way. Algae is woven into our daily lives. If you've had sushi, yep, you've eaten algae. It's used as a thickener in things like ice cream and cosmetics. And some types, like chlorella, are so packed with protein that they're literally used as food supplements for astronauts in space. How cool is that?
Okay, so life is thriving in the water. But what about the next great challenge? What about leaving the water and trying to survive on dry land? This was a massive evolutionary hurdle. And this is where our first land pioneers, the bryophytes, you know them as mosses, make their grand entrance.
So people often call bryophytes the amphibians of the plant kingdom. And honestly, it's the perfect analogy. Think about it. Just like a frog, they figured out how to live on land, but they were still totally dependent on water to reproduce. They couldn't break that final link.
And see, that dependence on water created a huge problem. If you don't have an internal way to move water around your body, you can't get very big, right? So mosses had to stay small and stick to damp places. To really truly conquer the land, plants needed an upgrade. They needed plumbing. And that is exactly what the next group on the scene, the pteridophytes, we know them as ferns, came up with.
This was the invention that changed everything, vascular tissue. It's basically a plant's internal plumbing system, and it has two main parts. You've got the xylem, which acts like a set of straws, pulling water up from the roots. And then you have the phloem, which is like a delivery service, moving all the food, the sugars, around the plant wherever it's needed. With this plumbing, plants could finally do something revolutionary. They could stand up straight, grow tall, and actually compete for sunlight.
Okay, so now plants have plumbing. They can grow tall, but there was still one major link back to the water they just couldn't shake: reproduction. Their reproductive cells still needed water to swim and find each other. So the next great evolutionary leap had to solve this problem once and for all, and finally cut the cord to the pond.
And the solution was the seed. It was a two-part revolution, really. First, you get pollen. This was a genius way for plant sperm to travel through the air, no water needed. But the real game changer was the seed itself. I mean, think of it as a perfect little survival kit for a baby plant. It's got a tough, protective coat, it's got a packed lunch of nutrients inside, and it's got the little embryo just waiting for the perfect moment to sprout. This one incredible invention, the seed, gave rise to the two major groups of plants that basically run the world today. First up were the gymnosperms, your classic pine trees and conifers. They have naked seeds, meaning the seeds just sit out in the open on their cones. A brilliant start, for sure. But then came the angiosperms, and they took this idea and added another layer of absolute genius.
And that brings us to what you could call the final act in this evolutionary play, the rise of the angiosperms, also known as the flowering plants. And they didn't just come up with one new trick. Oh no, they invented two new tools that would let them completely dominate the entire planet: the flower and the fruit.
Their strategy was just revolutionary. Flowers basically became a form of high-tech advertising. They used these vibrant colors, amazing shapes, and incredible scents to recruit allies, bees, birds, bats, to do all the hard work of pollination for them. It made reproduction so much more efficient. And they didn't stop there. After the flower does its job, you get the fruit, and the fruit is brilliant. It protects the seed, and then it acts as a bribe to get those same animals to act as a delivery service, carrying the seeds far and wide.
And well, the results really do speak for themselves. This two-punch combo of flowers and fruits was so unbelievably successful that today, flowering plants, the angiosperms, make up something like 90% of all known plant species on Earth. It wasn't just a success, it was a total evolutionary knockout.
So let's just recap this incredible journey, right? Each of these major groups we've talked about represents a brilliant solution to a huge problem. They just kept building on the successes of the groups that came before. First, mastering life in the water. Then, taking those first brave steps onto land. Then, inventing plumbing to grow tall. Then, breaking free from water for good with the seed. And finally, achieving total domination with the flower and fruit. It's an amazing story of innovation.
When you step back and think about it, from the very oxygen we breathe, to the soil we grow our food in, to the food itself, our fuel, our shelter, plants have literally engineered the world as we know it. They shaped our planet's past. They absolutely define our present, which leaves just one big question, right? What will they engineer next?